Being a head coach in sports is easier said than done. Your job is always on the line unless you win multiple championships. It's a tall order to take a bunch of talented athletes and have them mesh well together. It's even harder to do that for long stretches of time. For some of those who don't believe coaches matter, we beg to differ. I'm Justin Fraction, and today we present 10 coaches who turned bad teams into contenders. And a big shout out to Neighborhood Gamer for suggesting this list. We do hope you enjoyed this video, and if you do, feel free to click subscribe down below for more cool videos every single day. Number 10, Pete Carroll. The Seattle Seahawks were once not good enough to win much. Then they made Super Bowl 40, but lost and endured a short period of mediocrity. After winning just 5 games in 2009, Pete Carroll was brought in to steer the ship. Carroll got Seattle to the playoffs in 2010 and again in 2012 with Russell Wilson and the newly formed Legion of Boom. Carroll helped Seattle win the NFC Championship in 2013 and 14, winning Super Bowl 48. Seattle won 3 NFC West Division titles in Carroll's first 5 years as head coach, too. Number 9, Joel Quenneville. The Chicago Blackhawks were hockey's worst team by far from 1997-98 to 2007-8, making the playoffs just once while the United Center remained empty for years. Then the team hired Joel Quenneville as their head coach for the 2008-9 season. Chicago reached the Western Conference Final before falling to the Detroit Red Wings. The Blackhawks then became hockey's model organization, winning the Stanley Cup in 2010, 13, and 15. Yep, Quenneville formed a dynasty in the salary cap era, something most people thought they would never see. Number 8, Lenny Wilkens. Wilkens' 1,332 wins were second most all-time, and he turned multiple long-time losers into big-time winners. The Seattle Supersonics were awful for years until Wilkens coached them to an NBA championship in 1979. The Cleveland Cavaliers were awful in the 80s but made the playoffs 5 times in his 7 seasons there. And when he coached the Toronto Raptors, they fell 1 game short of reaching the Eastern Conference Final in 2001, Wilkens' first season as the boss in the Great White North. Number 7, Joe Maddon. The Tampa Bay Rays were constantly among baseball's worst teams, but in Joe Maddon's 3rd year as manager, he got them to the World Series in 2008. Maddon also led the Rays to the playoffs in 2010, 11, and 13. He joined the longtime losing Chicago Cubs in 2015, leading them to 97 wins and a trip to the 2015 NLCS. For an encore, the Cubs won the World Series in 2016, their first in 108 years. Number 6, Bill Belichick. After some nice seasons in the 90s that saw the Patriots play in Super Bowl 31, the Patriots decided it was time for a change. They hired Bill Belichick in 2008, just a day after he had been hired by the New York Jets. It's a long story. Belichick has since led the Patriots to 5 Super Bowl championships and turned them into America's model sports franchise of the new millennium. He's made a case for the greatest head coach ever. What's amazing is that he makes his job in New England look so easy. Number 5, Scotty Bowman. The winningest head coach in NHL history, won Stanley Cups in Montreal and Pittsburgh. When he became the Detroit Red Wings head coach in 93-94, it was a tough task. This team hadn't won a Stanley Cup since 1955. All Bowman did was take Detroit to the playoffs every year behind the bench while helping them win the Stanley Cup in 97, 98, and 2002. That's why he's the winningest coach ever. Number 4, Pat Riley. The Miami Heat joined the NBA in 1988-89 and were pretty miserable from that point up until 1995-96 when Riley became their head coach. He took them to the playoffs in his first 6 seasons as head coach there and helped them win the 2006 NBA championship. His work in the front office brought LeBron James and Chris Bosh over in 2010, helping Miami win the NBA championship in 2011 and 12 as well. Number 3, Bobby Cox. Cox originally managed the Braves from 1978 to 81, but was fired and then spent 4 seasons as Toronto Blue Jays manager. The Braves had endured 7 straight losing seasons up until 1991, but with Cox back in the fold, they reached consecutive World Series, losing in both. That's okay, the Braves won the World Series in 1995. Atlanta would make the playoffs every year under Cox from 91 to 2005. They only didn't make it in 1994 because the season got canceled in August due to the infamous strike. Number 2, Don Shula. The Dolphins' first 4 seasons as a franchise were forgettable. They were all losing seasons and fans in Florida had nothing to celebrate until Don Shula became their head coach in 1970. They went 10-4 to reach the playoffs, then made 3 straight Super Bowls, winning it in the 72 and 73 seasons. He coached them to a perfect 17-0 season in 72 as well. Shula's 328 wins as head coach are the most in NFL history. What a great call to hire him. And number 1, Bill Walsh. The San Francisco 49ers were established in 1946 and were terrible up until 1980. They made the playoffs 5 times and were totally irrelevant. Walsh became their head coach in 1978, but won just 8 games in his first 2 seasons there. Then came 1981, where Walsh led the 49ers to 13 wins and a Super Bowl championship. The 49ers struggled in 1982, but made the playoffs in each of the next 6 seasons. The 49ers were Super Bowl champions in 1984 and 88 too. And the 49ers were America's golden franchise throughout the 80s and much of the 90s, even after Walsh left. Who would Joe Montana be without him? Jerry Rice too. What other coaches turned terrible teams into winners? Join us in the comments below. If you liked this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps us out a ton and we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to Total Pro Sports though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.